Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to our penultimate screencast before you're back to live lessons on Friday. Okay, so today we're going to be looking at another solution to urban stresses and urban growth called eco-city design, or ecological city design. Okay, so what we're going to have to do here, you can see here, describe factors of an eco-city design, understand ways to measure it, and discuss management or strategies to manage ecological footprint in two cities. Okay, so that is a little bit of work for you at the end there to explore two different cities and what they've done. Oh, excuse me. End of the day on Friday. I'm getting a little bit sleepy. Okay, so let's go through this lesson first. So once again, there's the syllabus points for today. And if you've been keeping up with the review books, which you should have, we are nearly at the end of this particular optional unit, right? So that's good news. Okay, so when we're talking about this idea of ecological city design, really it's tying into the overall concept of sustainability, which you all should be able to define off the top of your heads, right? Meet the needs of today without compromising future generations' ability to meet their needs, right? And that's kind of how we have to think about ecological city design. How do we use the city and manage the city in a way that will allow it to function and fulfill the needs of the population forever, right? And that's the idea of sustainability, right? And that's the balancing act of the three pillars of sustainability. Do you remember what they are? Right? If we had sustainability as a little stool with three legs, it's not simply environment, that's only one of the legs. We have to look at the economic and social well-being of a place as well. And it's the balance between those three factors that really leads to a place becoming sustainable. Okay? So how can this possibly happen? What can we do in order for a city to become sustainable or ecological city design, for it to be really utilized well? Okay, I want to do a little bit of an exercise here with you. So even if you are learning this remotely, you're not able to join our live lesson, you can definitely contribute. So what I want you to do is click on this link here, or there's a link for it here, class mind map. I added it to both places. Okay, and what it is this, which is, it's empty right now, but by the time you see this, this probably won't be empty. And I want us, we all can edit this particular mind map here. And I want us to fill it with different ideas that you think would be must-haves for a city to become ecological or environmental. So maybe we have a branch here that's about energy. And then we can put all our ideas around energy production for this ideal ecological city. Maybe you have a branch here for, like, I don't know, social needs or culture or education. There's so many ideas that we could use to explore this. So I want us to work together, so just one for the whole class, and see what we can think of, right? So take some time now to do that. Or if it's pretty complete, by the time you're watching this video, read to see what your classmates have thought of, and try to add an idea or two of your own. Okay? Now, once that's done, it's nice. So you can see, like, this idea, ideally we can see now that this could touch upon all aspects of a city. And this is where, like, creative design, awareness of the functions of a city could really come into play to come up with some innovative solutions to issues that we see within city design. So here's some ideas. The Eco City has zero waste, right? So this could be the circular economy aspects within a city. So perhaps people have thought about that. Zero carbon waste, so like addressing climate change issues, so like being carbon neutral within the city itself. Powered by renewables. Well, circular economy, self-contained or more locally based economy, right? That's pretty good. Self-contained would be like local production of goods, local manufacturing, local agriculture. Preserves the natural environment, tries to work within it. So that'd be like less depletion of green space, contested land perhaps is preserved. Social and economic development without creating disparities. Whoa, that one's hard to accomplish, right? Like, how do we have economic development without disparities becoming apparent? Or how do we provide for the poor so that the disparities become more well balanced within society? Efficient public transport and high density land use. Well, we're all pretty much expert on those two ideas, but for an ecological city, those are key components, right? we'll get back to this later, but one of the key ideas for efficient public transport is you need effective or sufficient, I should say, population density to be able to offer good public transport. Like, pretty self-explanatory. You couldn't have an MTR station out to a rural population because it wouldn't pay for the station. You need to have a sufficient density in order to give them really high-level, world-class public transport and easy to walk. So it's easy to walk or perhaps bicycle to most places, right? So these are just some ideas that we could have addressed in our mind map. Oh, I'm really sorry about the yawning. It's the end of the day on Friday, like I said. I'm tired. One way we can measure this, we've looked at this before. We looked at the carbon footprint and we've looked at ecological footprint. So this is just like a continuation and extension of that same idea, right? Where we have urban ecological footprint. So it's all the inputs into the city plus the amount of land used to absorb the waste produced by a city, okay? So we have this idea of like, well, what's the environmental impact of a city is really what it's trying to look at here. So this is an accounting tool used to measure the land and sea areas mankind uses to provide what we take from nature. Okay, so it's really important, some words in here. Accounting tool used to measure the theoretical, I wish I had said that there, land and sea areas mankind uses to provide what we take. Okay, but it's missing something. And needed to absorb our carbon dioxide emissions. So it's one, to produce the goods we use, and two, to absorb the waste we produce, okay? So footprint of a city is defined as the amount of land required to sustain its metabolism, provide the raw materials in which it feeds, and process the waste it excretes. So how much land is required to do that, okay? So here's what we look at if this is a national, in terms of global hectares per capita on a national level. Okay, but one thing I want you to see, though, is regional patterns within this. Like, the size of the country is relative to the size of the ecological footprint of the place, right? So if we look at the kinds of development, so it says here, good, equal to world biocapacity. That means that the ecological footprint of the place is a good level. Middling is the yellow. Between 1.78 and 3.56, poor. Deep red is more than 7 Earths. So you have like the United States up there as a deep red country, right? But most of these industrialized countries in Western Europe, parts of Asia like Japan, South Korea, Hong Kong's there. Oh, they did differentiate Hong Kong. That's nice. Okay, so we see some areas. So what is the pattern here between ecological footprint and levels of development? Well, it seems pretty straightforward, right? The higher the level of economic development, like HIC countries, the greater the ecological footprint. So this should be quite apparent to you. Like, what could lead to that? Well, how much land is used to produce the goods being used? What kind of food is being consumed? How much energy is being used? What's consumption like? Right? What type of consumption? And that usually leads to the amount of ecological footprint. Okay, let's differentiate these terms. Biologically productive area versus biocapacity. Okay, so global average biological productive area per capita is 2.7 global hectares. This means that each person needs 2.7 hectares of land to produce and provide the resources to support their lifestyle and waste. Okay? That's the average biological productive land that's needed. However, the average biocapacity per capita is 1.78. Okay, so we need to have this biologically productive area. So how much land do I need in order to provide everything I need and to absorb the waste that I produce? Well, it's much greater. There's a 0.92 deficit in this measurement. Okay, so what does this imply? I mean, well, largely, I think we've talked about this before. We're going to lead to overshoot, right? Using more of the resources than the world produces, okay? Which leads to a number of environmental consequences. So here we have Earth Overshoot Day, and we can see that progressively over time, this is getting shorter and shorter and shorter, right? Closer and closer to the beginning of the year. So this question here, I'm just reading, sorry. that's suggesting that we're not doing a very good job of reduction of the ecological footprint. Okay? It's becoming more and more of an issue. But you have to remember, too, one thing I'd like to state is that you have to remember that this is a theoretical measurement. So it's not like a practical, it's not like a definitive answer towards it, where it's like, oh no, we need 0.92 global hectares more of land in order to do these things. No. Just take in mind that what this is actually trying to do, right? It's trying to show us our consumption and the rate of consumption compared to how much is available within the world. So keep that in mind. This isn't like a measurement that we actually need another Earth. This is just an awareness of how our consumption relates to the amount being produced by the Earth. Okay, but if we break this up, the overshoot day based off of a country, we see a different pattern emerge, right? So like here, these would be the overshoot days if the world population lived like the people within this country. So surprising, Qatar would be the earliest. Everyone lived like people in Qatar. Qatar is be February 9th. Right? United States, March 15th. What's with this though? Like United Arab Emirates, Qatar, okay, sure. Oil producing countries, Kuwait, the fossil fuel emissions are immense, right? I think that kind of stuff. Luxembourg, a very wealthy country, small population, lots of consumption, right? Very little land that they're producing for anything of their own. Right? Canada's right there. Canada's not much better than the United States if everyone lived like Canada. Then we get to the other, China's here all the way in June 15th. Guyana, Mexico, Thailand, Panama, Peru, Albania, Cuba, Jamaica, Vietnam. If everyone lived like people did in Vietnam, we'd be pretty much in balance, right? Not too bad. This is where we were 1990, 30 years ago. Wow. I feel old. All right. So what do we have? This is a Sustainable Cities Index, okay, that we're used to try to measure this. So let's watch this intro video on this way to measure it as well. So we already have ecological footprints. We're looking at one more thing here.
Cities have unique identities, heavily influenced by their urban landscapes, their economies, and their people. Some cities are settled in moderate climates or have a healthy and an economically balanced population, which give them clear advantages when it comes to sustainability. Others have to deal with issues such as extreme climates, rapid population growth, or a lack of financial resources. The 2016 Arcadis Sustainable Cities Index explores the performance of 100 of the world's cities against 3 pillars of sustainability: people, planet, and profit. Social, environmental, and economic sustainability together offer an indicative picture of the present and future health of cities. The research finds that many cities around the world are not effectively balancing these 3 pillars. While leading some areas, cities are naturally vulnerable or have opportunities to improve in others. This split story is dragging down the performance of individual cities and sustainability across the world. No city appears in the top 10 of all 3 pillars, suggesting that every city has something to learn. Instead, leaders on the different pillars that make up true sustainability come from every corner of the world. Singapore and Hong Kong demonstrate extremes. They take first and second place in the profit sub-index, but sit near the bottom half of the ranking for social sustainability. Zurich leads the overall ranking and the planet sub-index and scores well on economic sustainability, but appears in 27th place on the people sub-index. London is a similar story. Amsterdam, 11th overall, shows dedication to its people. Sydney performs strongest on environmental sustainability measures, as does Sao Paulo. In contrast, the US cities tend to perform best on the profit sub-index, with 5 appearing in the top quarter of the ranking: New York, San Francisco, Washington, Boston, and Denver. Dubai sits in 4th place for economic sustainability, but is also let down on its social sustainability scores and sits near the bottom of the table on the planet sub-index. These extremes begin to reveal the personality and fabric of global cities. But cities have a responsibility to citizens to deliver on all three factors of sustainability, evolving their characters to be the best possible version. Having a clear vision and identity for the city is the starting point of this process. Arcadis, improving quality of life.
Okay, so I really like hearing the amount of cities and like where the cities rank and how they rank because it helps me put into context, sorry, regarding this measurement, right? Like which one ranks well and things like that. Sorry, I can't go full screen the other way. Annoying. Okay. Any guesses what the top 5 cities are? We always play this game. Think about it. Got it? Okay. Zurich, Singapore, Stockholm, Vienna, and London, right? For this particular measurement of composite indicator. So let's take a look, break down a little bit more. Okay. So really, it's looking at 3 different aspects, right? People, planet, profit, right? And it's balancing those 3 as examples of sustainability. And we know that, right? Because it's social, environmental, economic, right? Is really what they're looking at here. So overall, Hong Kong is 16th place. But profit-wise, it's second. The people rank 81st out of 100, right? So there's some things hidden over the overall rankings of the place. So please keep that in mind, right? Like Shanghai, although it's ranked 74th, the people ranking is 43rd compared to Hong Kong's 81st, okay? Of course, the other measurements, it scored much better, but still, like there's some hidden things within it, okay? So that number 2, that's almost an outlier here. Like we're second in profit, but that's driving up the ranking so much. Okay. So there's a little bit more detail here because we're going to do some work with this in a second. So first, the People Sub Index, which is looking at a bunch of different things like life expectancy, obesity, literacy in universities, income equality, work-life balance, dependency ratio, crime and housing and living costs. So it's trying to define things that are broadly thought of as quality of life, right? The impact of people. The green factors, the planet or the environmental measurements, is looking at energy consumption, renewable energy share. That means the amount of energy produced by renewables, green space within the city, recycling, composting rates, greenhouse gas emissions, natural catastrophe risk, drinking water, sanitation, air pollution. Things that trying to look at the greenness of a city. And economic, the Profit Sum Index, this is the one that Hong Kong was top 2 at. I think it was second. Performance from a business perspective, measurements of transport infrastructure, rail, air, traffic congestion, ease of doing business, tourism, GDP per capita, city's importance of global economic networks, connectivity in terms of mobile and broadband access, and employment rates. Thought of economic health of the city. Right? Like for me, all of those things resonate with my understanding and my description of what Hong Kong is. Of course, like if you look at it today compared to when this measurement was taken, perhaps we're seeing some downturn as the GDP or the growth of the GDP has been much slower, if not negative, over the past year. Okay, so I'd be curious to see where it would rank today. So that's the nuts and bolts of the lesson. Right now, we're going to get into a little bit more of the detailed examples on this particular topic. So I want you to find out 3 different questions, really, right? You're going to you're going to categorize various components of Malmö's in Sweden and Vancouver, my home city, respective strategies into 3 categories: people, planet, and profit, similar to what they did, or basically copying what they did from the previous, I can't even think now. Sustainable Cities Index, SCI. Oh, yeah. And I want you to compare their overall approaches to reduce their urban ecological footprint. So you can be looking at how effective they were, do some comparisons just to see the difference between them as well, the different approaches they might be taking. And then I want you to consider what challenges they're facing in trying to accomplish this. Okay? This is just a couple links to get you started. There's several other resources on the website that I'll show you in a moment. Okay? And just so you know, like Vancouver has been influential in CDNAS as we try to make our own design better. right, for waste management centers. They copied Vancouver's design for how we implemented that within our school. And let me walk you through a couple things. So this should be interesting. I can't wait to see what you guys do with this mind map. Here, I just put the 3 questions here for you once again. This is a reading on Malmo. Malmo didn't have as many resources, but the ones that were there were very strong. So this is a quick article on Malmo and what they're doing there. This is the planet geography section. This is a longer read, right? But it goes through all the details of the lesson specific. So that might help you with note-taking in the future. But there is, here, case study, Malmo, Sweden, right? So just scroll down to page 22 for this particular reading, and then all the information on Malmo will be there. So that should be a fairly straightforward case study to get through, okay? The second one in Vancouver, I've added several. They have 10 goals for becoming a green city or an eco city. So you can go through kind of what they're trying to think of here. They have the Green City Action Plan, right? This is part 2 as we approach into 2020. This is a longer read. You don't need to read it all, of course, but it's really nice when you get these documents to read the beginning of them because it usually gives us a great summary, right? Moving forward, and if you want to get into the more specific of the plans to see, because each of the goals there that are mentioned in the slide are also expanded on here. And lastly, Vancouver produced a number of videos explaining what they're doing to become an ecological city or green city. And I'd like you to explore some of those. So many videos. Okay, and that's it. I don't mind if you're working in small groups for this work, but stay on task. We're almost done. So 2 more lessons, or 1 more lesson. So 1 more? I can't even remember. Eco City, Smart City. Oh, and then review. And then next week, oh, look, a test. Sweet. Okay, so 1 more topic after this on smart cities, then we're done. Review class, test. Righto. Let me know if you have any questions. And yep, that's it. Bye.